Hi, my name is William. I'm the head of studio here at Proof of Play, and I'm here with Phillip, the lead designer, and we're going to be talking Pirate Nation and the new crafting system that is coming to the game. Quick disclaimer, everything that I'm talking about is scheduled to go into the game, but names, values could change. Just be aware of that. That is my disclaimer. Let's talk about some really cool stuff.
First off, I think the crafting system that we currently have in the game is a little one-dimensional. One, it's a mismatch of all these different types of items that you don't really know how it fits, and it doesn't really feed well into the exploration of the game, where you're collecting all these new resources in the world, and that needs to feed into the crafting in a more organized fashion. So similar to how you envision crafting in other games, you want to be able to take your ores, your wood, and like feed it into carpentry, for example, or feed the ores into metalworking, and start using those materials that you find all across the world to just build out really cool equipment that lets you customize your decks and really become the type of pirate that you want to be.
One of the biggest changes to the game that's coming with crafting is a queue-based system. So right now in the game, you just instantly produce whatever it is you want to craft. That's actually shifting to a new system where each building in the crafting system, including the blacksmith, has individual slots, and you'll choose that slot and what to craft within that slot. Then a timer comes up and starts ticking down. So let's say you're crafting an anchor, and the anchor is like 5 minutes. The 5-minute timer would start, and it starts ticking down. Now you can spend gems to speed that up and get through that craft faster. The idea here is that you'll have a limited number of slots in each building, and those slots will expand as you improve the building. So you start with like 2 to 3 slots, and then it expands to 4, 5, 6 over time, so you can craft more things simultaneously.
Our plan is to give all players the first tier of every single building right at the get-go, so that players can just basically finish a quest and then place the building onto their island, and that way they can sort of kickstart their crafting experiences.
We're going to give it to them at level 1, and then we're going to allow them to build a skill in using the Foundry, right? So as I use the Foundry, my skill goes up. The more times I do crafts, the more experience I get for doing those crafts, the more Foundry experience I get, until eventually I can level that building up because I've gotten enough experience, right?
Yep, and then when you actually level up and upgrade your building to the next level, that'll unlock new recipes that are even harder to complete, and it'll start requiring some of the more advanced materials. So if you're in the Loom, you're originally collecting cotton, all your recipes will utilize cotton or any of their lower tier resources, and then that feeds into the flax and eventually the silk that will come out.
And then we should also note that when you are upgrading buildings along that path, you will require, much like ships, an upgrade plan for the building. And so these are going to be items that come out of treasures around from various locations in the game.
As you all know, we originally had the forge within the islands, where you can basically craft a bunch of different items, skins, whatnot. And we're actually going to be taking the forge and splitting this into 4 different buildings. So we have the blacksmith, we have the loom, the workshop, and the foundry. So for the workshop, basically you're taking a bunch of the pine wood, oak wood you get from gathering, and crafting really cool equipment out of that. Specifically, we want players to aim for like the quality spyglass. That's like basically the carrot of the system, which lets you search your deck for really cool cards, amplify your damage, and just have a lot of utility and versatility across the entire crafting tree. So each of the equipments will be catered towards like one specific area, such as like I said, card draw or searching. So definitely look out for that.
I look forward to getting the harpoon launcher out there and getting the ability to do bleeds and just give that to everybody. I've heard people with certain pirate types go, hey, where's Harpoon the Hull? I don't have Harpoon the Hull. And it's like, yeah, you're right, you don't. But now, if you can get the harpoon launcher, you could have it, right?
And then we have also the foundry, which is more mining based. So that's where you're getting your iron ore, your copper ore, you're crafting really cool cannons, armor. And the one thing that you should really look out for is the cargo winch. So we have the new system called the Stowaway coming out, which lets you basically bank a single card per turn over to the next turn. But that usually costs a good amount of AP to hold on to the cards. And the cargo winch has a really cool feature where it lets you reduce that AP cost so that you're basically carrying over cards cheaper and more efficiently towards future turns. And that'll be a big game changer, honestly. I've foreseen the meta changing widely around just stowaway in general, so the cargo winch will be amazing for that. And you'll be able to craft super powerful equipment like Phoenix cannons, lightning cannons, which will all give more attack-based cards. When you first start out at the Foundry, you'll be building out some rusty cannons, which give you some weaker attack cards, but then that lets you build into the next tier of cannons. Like you need a rusty cannon to go into the iron cannon, which goes into the stronger lightning cannons in the future.
So what we're doing is we're actually building upon a base. Like you never outgrow the first level of stuff, because the first level of stuff is used in the second level of stuff, and the second level is used in the third level. So there's always a reason to be making that stuff. The other building is the Loom. It's one that I'm very interested in myself. We are going to be doing like sails and these things called hull threads. And hull threads, if you can imagine, weaving materials into the actual hull of the ship. The designs, if you think about the Polynesian designs on their ships and stuff like that, it's the way it's kind of envisioned. But the idea is that you're weaving these threads through your hull in there, and it's empowering your ship. And the kind of stuff you should be looking to get out of the Loom would be things that affect your AP count, that give you evasion, and there's also some healing stuff. Another thing that's coming out of the Loom is the med kits, the med bays. So the med kits, you start with, like, I think even at level 1 you can create a basic med kit which gives you some healing. So if you're a expertise pirate that doesn't have a lot of healing, you'll have the ability to install one of these in your ships as a ship item, and then you'll have a little more healing to your deck. And then, you work towards the quality medkit, and the quality medkit gives you more powerful versions of healing. And the good news is you can have both in the ship, right? You can have the lower quality and the higher quality and get a lot of healing in your deck all of a sudden. So that's the whole point of the system, is to give the players a lot more customization, add specific things that are lacking in their decks through these ship items. And the Loom's going to focus on AP, evasion, and healing. So that's the route you want to go if that's the kind of thing you want to make. And then there's still the Blacksmith, right? The forge that's on Parrot's Perch, and that's really the catch-all. That's for anything like decorations, when you want to merge skins and stuff together. So stuff that wouldn't normally go into these buildings will wind up there.
Yeah, William, I remember in previous video you were talking about how you're going all in on, what was it, harvesting? Is that correct?
Yeah. So I'm the harvester. I'm getting all the cotton and textiles so that I can build sails, because I like sails.
I will say that, while it's really smart to go deep down in one specific area, we're going to want some cross-pollination between the different disciplines. So you'll definitely be wanting some amount of ores, some wood. Granted, it won't be at the same level of what you need at the Loom, or in compared to cotton, but you'll still need to interact with other players, or even start to branch out your skills a bit more.
I know that when I first start off in my Loom, I can make cotton nets, and cotton nets are going to let me get the mermaid scales, and I can go do quests that require the mermaid scales. But just to make sails, for example, I'm going to need some wooden items, some things from the workshop. So I'm going to have to go to Vernon and say, hey, I need you to make me a bunch of these, and we'll trade, I'll trade you a bunch of linen and you'll give me a bunch of planks, right? That type of thing. And that'll support us both, right?
Yep, that's the story.
Or I can just go off and say, I'm going to put 5 levels, 10 levels into this skill myself, and then I can kind of handle it all myself. But as I go up and advance my building, that gets harder and harder because the points get spread out. I only have so much energy to spend in a day. That's why I kind of like the idea of focusing on one and trading with some other players. So one of the things that we want to talk about is when we go deeper in the chain, along the things like the Loom, I start off by making ratty sails. These are bad sails. They don't give me, maybe they give me base evasion skills or something like that, right? But nothing great. I'm not busting out ghost mode at that level, right? So I'm going to work my way all the way up through levels 1, 2, 3, 4. And I want to get to some really sweet objects that I can create. Now, along the way, obviously, if I'm building a type of deck and I can use ratty sails to get additional evasions and stuff in my deck, I want to do that. But when I reach those upper levels and I get to like the haunted sales, which require me to go out and get the spiteful spirit and combine it with like rare resources, that's where I start seeing big items that can give me a lot of different things. So much like the harpoon launcher, things that give me 2, 3, 4, 5 different cards that are related to this this type of object.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that will let you customize the deck that you really want in the end of the day. Like, there's so many evasion cards I want to just put in every single deck of every deck that I have, and this will essentially give you a path forward for that. So I'm excited to see that happen.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to give players more agency over the kind of cards that they have in their deck. So you'll have your base pirate, and your base pirate will have their strong cards. You know, for example, damage pirates are going to have the long knives, right? And they have 2 of them, and no other pirate really has that. We don't want to take that away from damage pirates. They're going to continue to be elite in that category. But I can work my way up as high as like big guns, for example, so that if I'm creating cannons in the Foundry, I can make cannons that are the equivalent of big guns, maybe with different abilities. Maybe some apply additional effects beyond just the raw damage.
Yeah, absolutely. We still want to make the pirate class that is like specialized in that area to still shine, have reasons for actually going down that path, but still allow for basically like, I guess, some spillover across different pirates types and
right. So
playstyles.
you're filling gaps, right? So like if I'm running a health pirate, I don't have a lot of damage, right, ability. So I want to get cannons on my ships so that I can fill in those gaps, right? Likewise, if I'm running an evasion pirate, I can evade a lot of damage, but if I'm fighting enemies that have a lot of AoE, I don't have really good healing options. So maybe I want to get the med bays, or the med kits into my ship so I get those healing options.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I run into a hand where it's just armor, health, and then the other person's not attacking me this turn. I'm like, that was useful, thanks. Earlier you were talking about if these buildings can fit on your island, and honestly, ideally, every building can be fit onto your island without any issues, but also I heard there's also players who have way exceeded our expectations, built out so many shipwrights, and that will make fitting any of these crafting buildings onto the island even a bigger challenge. So honestly, I think it's a problem if the island can't support players like hopes and dreams in that regards.
I think that when it comes to island space, on our test net, I fit all 3 of the buildings on my island. It does take a majority of the main portion of the island to do that. So, and you can have this stuff that's branched off the island, the ship rights, right, as well. But yeah, in the future, we're going to want to look into how we can improve that situation.
If you had to choose, what would be your favorite crafting building, and why?
Well, naturally, due to the gathering skill that I've the harvesting skill that I have, I'm going to want to focus on the loom, and I want to, and the reason why I'm going that whole path is I like evasion. I like being that kind of quick pirate that's nimble in combat and stuff. So I figure I will offset my lack of damage by trading for cannons and getting cannon objects on my ships. But I'll be the person that's making the sales and passing those around to people.
Yeah, I just like naturally picked up mining for just like no reason. Maybe it's like my propensity to do it from World of Warcraft days or even Final Fantasy 14 days.
Yeah, see, I think you're right, because in World of Warcraft I was the bag maker, right? So I was always making the bags for all my friends. So I think I had that kind of natural fit as well, which is it feels right to go this way.
Yeah, exactly. But my real reason is that the Foundry actually looks really badass.
Does.
Like seeing the molten metal just like pour it down, I'm like, oh my god, I want this on my island.
I feel the same way with the loom, with like the little stitching that's going back and forth with all the threads. I think it looks beautiful. So one of the questions that was asked of me was, you got these 3 new buildings coming. Are there going to be more?
I mean, look, I definitely want to see more buildings. I want to see my island and like prosper. I love my city builder games, my cozy games there. I want to see a full-fledged ecosystem with bustling activity everywhere. But honestly, we have to look at how players are interacting with these buildings before we actually make more. We need to make some more informed decisions based on the data that we get back from our players before we actually commit to any additional buildings. But we'll definitely be monitoring the metrics in that regards and looking into ways to basically potentially grow the system even more. A lot of this is just like basic building tech anyways, so we have room to expand that. We have room to even create more buildings pretty soon, I would say. But yeah, we definitely still need to wait before we act.
The other thing that I think is important to note is that all these buildings are personal use only at this time, right? We're not letting other players use your leveled up building. That could change in the future, right? So we make it more like there are services available at these buildings. But for version 1, just get it out into the player's hands, see how it's getting used, and then expand on it from there. I can imagine in the future, like we could do something like allow people to have multiple of a building, and they have like I have 3, 4, 5 foundries on my island, and I'm the person to come to if you want to make your stuff. It's just we want to build the first part of the system, which is let's get the buildings in and working and producing the things, and then we'll consider expanding to allow other players to use the buildings and things like that. But iterate to success, right? So focus on getting it in and working, see how people react to it and how they use it, and then expand from there. There are a lot of recipes within the building. At first level, you'll have like 3 or 4, and then you unlock 3 or 4 or 5 more at second level, and et cetera, et cetera. Do these recipes ever change over time?
Yes, in the sense that we'll be tracking how many times a player is crafting a specific recipe per recipe. And once you have exceeded a certain threshold, you end up becoming a master at that recipe. And what it means to be a master is just like benefits for crafting that recipe. Reductions in cost is probably what we'll go through at the start, but yeah, like it'll give you a leg up against all other players that want to compete in that market. And having a reduced cost on a specific recipe is a big deal because it means you can output that recipe even cheaper than every other player. You can basically be the person who's controlling the market, essentially. And if you can get there to the higher recipes quicker than any other player, that's also another leg up. So there's some cool synergies that happen there.
Imagine that if we start with cost savings, so that it doesn't cost you as much to produce the items. That's a great way to start off. In the future, we might consider things like it takes less time, right? Like we have a default time of some of the tougher items to build are like 12 or 20 hours, right? Taking an hour or 2 off of that type of time would be good as well.
Yeah, and something we've also been whispering about is just the idea of like brand new crafts being released that require a recipe mastery of a previous recipe. So yeah, being first to actually hit recipe mastery has a lot of benefits.
Cool. Yeah, I can imagine you have to master everything on one tier of your building, and then it unlocks the master recipe for that level or something along those lines. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, what gets me going is the progression. It's like when you're starting at the level 1 craft, you see just like a bunch of common recipes. And get to level 2, you see the uncommon recipes. Level 3, you see the rare recipes. Eventually, you'll make your way to the last level and you start seeing legendary recipes. I'm like, yes, I want legendary gear.
Yeah, I also like the idea that all this gear is useful, right? Even while you're making legendary recipes or rare recipes, you're still going to need stuff from the common tier to contribute to that, right? So each piece of gear that's being used is being built from items of the previous tiers. So it's not like, I've made my last net and I'm not going to make nets anymore. I've made my last bolt of linen and I'm not going to make bolts of linen anymore. No, you're going to continue to make bolts of linen throughout the entire process and forevermore, right?
Absolutely. And that was basically our answer to the fears of like, what happens if the market crashes on one specific item or a tier of items where like all of a sudden it's cheaper on the market for a tier 4 or tier 5 item compared to like a tier 1, and that feels wrong. Like those higher up leveled crafts should like actually feel impactful. They should cost more, and they shouldn't crash in the market just because they're just basically an EXP soaker and nothing else. So
I also like the concept that's being kicked around. I know we're gonna do this, alpha alert, but the idea is that eventually there's gonna be crafting quests, right? Like, hey, turn in 5 sails or turn in 4 cannons or whatever, and you'll get rewards. So another nice thing is if you do have a surplus of things building up, there's going to be a place to actually put those things that's still good to generate, whether it be gold or booty or whatever it is, associated with it. The crafting system ties in really well with the collection system, right? How's it going to tie into the ship system, right? Like we're thinking along the lines of each one of these items that you craft can be slotted into a ship, but there aren't that many slots on ships right now. So what are we doing about that?
Like you said, yeah, not many slots. That is not where we want to be in the long run. We want to be able to give players a lot more slots so that they have options to customize their decks, even pretty early on in their pirate experience, as early as level 10, maybe even sooner.
I think sooner.
But
I think we want to get to
yeah,
sooner. I honestly think, look, in the first 3 or 4 levels, you want to get the lay of the land, the game. Let's play some gauntlets. Let's go out and explore and collect some resources and maybe get my foundation building set up and whatnot. And then we start really getting into, hey, these combats are getting a little more difficult, and I want to have more flavor and direction in my deck. And right now, waiting to level 20 sucks. So
yeah,
we don't want to do that. Bringing it into level 10, it's okay, but can we bring it down to level 5, right? Can we bring it down to level 4, right? And I think we can. I think we just, one of the key components to that is have more indifferent cards, right? Because you don't want to just give them more of the same card.
Exactly. We definitely need to build out our unique cards, making sure that there is a wide variety and reasons to bring different cards based on whatever your deck preference is. So yeah, you can expect way more slots. You can expect way more cards in the near future.
For day 3 or 4, you should be like, hey, I get at least a couple choices, right? It's like, do I want to have more attacks and more defense in my deck, or do I want to have heals or shields or evades or things like that? So getting it to people early, I think, is important. And I think, slots is one way to do it. Going back and reworking the pirate expertise system, so there's a few more cards in there, or the base 10 system, making it a base 20 system, where boats give you 20 cards instead of 10, is a good way to do it. The long run, definitely the crafting system is going to do that. We're going to give you items that you can slot into your ship to give you 2, 3, 4, 5 cards. You have 5, 6, 7 slots in these higher end ships. Suddenly you're adding 20, 30, 40 cards to your overall selection. So you have lots of opportunities, lots of different choices to pick from.
Cool. So the one thing we didn't really talk about was treasure seeking. How does that actually fit into the rest of these buildings?
It fits into all the buildings. Are you kidding me? Treasure seeking gets you gold. Right.
Absolutely.
Every recipe in all of these buildings, they're gonna have several elements to them, but I think almost every one of them requires some amount of gold. Yeah.
Every single one.
So yeah, you're gonna need gold to be an effective crafter.
Yep. I mean, also in the future, there definitely will be plans to expand on how treasure seeking works and why you'll need it. Can't disclose too much about that, but trust me, you'll definitely want treasure seeking, or at least some component of it.
Yeah, I think like most systems, what you can expect is that we're gonna launch this. The buildings will come out and we'll limit the level to 3, and we'll evaluate the data that comes in and the reception from the players. And we have ideas of how we want to continue to build this to level 4, level 5. But before we commit to that, we're going to see it actually out in the wild and working, and make sure that we validate all the data and assumptions that we're making. And then once we've kind of gotten that confidence that we're moving in the right direction, then we'll go to level 4, we'll go to level 5, and continue expanding the system. So the new stowaway system's coming out, and that's going to make encounters much easier, in my opinion, because now you're going to be able to carry stuff from one round to the next. If I have my long 9s in my hand, but I can't play it because I don't have enough AP this round, for an AP or 2, I can put it into that stowaway slot, and I know it's going to come over into my hand the next round. And I think that's going to make things go much smoother for players, right? Because it's not all RNG. What did I get this turn? I now have a kind of a semblance of a board state. I can carry something from turn to turn. I can start lining up synergies between cards.
Yeah, you're not reliant on RNG. Essentially, you actually have agency in how you want to play. So I think it's a big game changer. Like, I'm definitely gonna be holding my evasions for the bleed that I know is coming from the enemies. If I have an AoE attack, I know I want to stack that up and just try to wipe out an entire enemy group. But I guess the big thing is that while encounters will be a little easier because you have this agency, will definitely be wanting to push the envelope in terms of hard content. So
Yeah,
we'll definitely
I think
be.
people look at the anglers now and they'll be like, I think I could take the anglers now. But it's like,
Yeah,
oh, well, here comes some tougher anglers, or here comes some new creatures that we haven't introduced yet, right? And
yeah.
yeah, so I think even the skiffs are going to get more competent now that they have this ability to carry things over and line stuff up. Like, I'm going to hold on to this, plus 50% damage until my long nines comes out, right? So yeah, I think encounters will become easier. I think the data will prove that out very quickly. We'll see the success rates go up in combat across the board, and that just means we need to get cool. But I mean, again, need to read the data. Need to make sure that we're proving our hypothesis as we put it out there, and make sure that it's doing what we think it's going to do. I certainly feel that in testing when I'm on testnet and I'm blowing things away at a much faster rate. I'm like, yeah, people are gonna like this, but then they're gonna be like, well, things that were hard aren't so hard anymore, and then we get to, come out with the extreme difficulty stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure. And we definitely need to create content that like sort of necessitates all this equipment, the stowaway, just like reasons for like why do I need to deck out my ship with all these cool new cards? And honestly, more content, harder challenges. That's the answer. It's like we really need to push the envelope of all these different combat features that we're releasing and give reasons as to why people need them.
Yeah, and I think in truth, it's just expanding the whole range, right? We still need easy content for new players to come into the game, but we just need new end content stuff that's going to expand that ceiling of that content. So, and luckily we have a lot of creatures coming that's going to fill that void.
Or you're saying that anglerfish isn't going to be the hardest content? What?
I'm saying it's not.
What?
I'm saying there's harder content out there. There are meaner versions of the Charybdis coming. That's what I'm saying.
Oh no.